So, folks, you guys have repeatedly requested this segment. I had to bump it a few times, so it's a bit older than it might otherwise be. But you know what? You guys are probably fine with that. We're going to go over Cenk Uygur's interview with Marjorie Taylor Greene. And I know that that's going to be a bit weird. I have pre-watched this. And I think it is valuable in the sense that of kind of a continuation of a small series we did the other day, right? Which is kind of this idea of, reform versus revolution, and like seeking out kind of a synthesis of those two approaches, both reform and revolution. Well, this presents kind of like, this represents the compromise, the true, like, not just a reform that can be rolled back, but like a compromise with rolling back. This is like I guess a reform in that sense, but this is like the most negative incarnation of reform that I can imagine, right? So going into this, let's see how our view kind of fits into this conversation. With that being said, like, comment, and subscribe. You guys love doing that on YouTube, so go do it. And let's get into it, shall we? I can't wait to see how this goes a second time.
Congresswoman Greene, good to have you on the Young Turks.
Hi, thanks for having me tonight.
No problem. So normally we disagree a lot, and you've seen some of that. But tonight we're going to talk about something that we might have in common, and I want to get a little bit of information about what's happening on the inside in Washington, and see if we can maybe prevent a war. So the two sides coming together here on what I hope is a good mission.
And this is what I talked about the other day when I talked about how, like, Cenk Uygur thinks he's like negotiating like an agreement. Like, if he can get her to agree that war is bad, that's like a legally binding agreement, and she would never just lie to him and then do something different at a future time. And that seems really naive to me in a way that I find difficult to like even understand his thought process.
So let's start on Iran. I'm worried about a war with Iran. It appears you're worried about a war with Iran. Do you know where it stands today within the Trump administration? Because you and Tucker Carlson and others seem so concerned that it makes me more concerned.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. And I just want to thank you for having me on your show tonight. I think it's incredibly important that we find common ground as Americans. And that's never a bad thing, even when we do disagree on other issues. So thank you so much.
Okay, can I say something that might be a little bit mean? Marjorie Taylor Greene has a face that looks like it was designed in the Oblivion character creator. There, I said it. Moving on.
I have been very concerned, and I'll tell you why. A little bit of my background. I'm one of those Americans that are really sick and tired of the narrative that we're constantly told that we're supposed to hate some country that's overseas, that maybe we've never been to. We don't know anything about that country, but we're told that they're the greatest threat to our freedoms and our democracy, and that we have to go to war with them. We saw this. We'll go back to Vietnam. We went to Vietnam and we lost thousands and thousands of American soldiers, and we lost that war. We went into Iraq. We were told we were to look for weapons of mass destruction. Well, we didn't find any, but we ended up being stuck in the Middle East for a long time, and then ended up in Afghanistan looking for Osama bin Laden, and he wasn't there either. And then we were told that the oil in the Middle East would make us rich, and we were told that rare earth minerals in Afghanistan would also make us rich. Well, that didn't. We're $36 trillion in debt. And for me, I'll just be really direct. I'm unapologetically for our country, the United States of America, and I want to fix our problems here at home. And I believe that's what everyone's hard-earned tax dollars are really supposed to be used for. And I just don't buy the narrative anymore. We've been told.
So, like, the thing is, right? So Cenk is asking us to basically believe that if she agrees that war with Iran is bad, she will be a voice of reason to Donald Trump, telling him that war is bad and he shouldn't do that. But also at the same time, we're expected to believe that she would do that, despite the fact that she just lied. She just lied. The position that she has here is essentially, oh yeah, we should be fixing problems at home. The problems American taxpayers face. Those kinds of problems, right? And like, the issue here is that, well, she's totally fine passing a bill that would like effectively completely defund Medicaid over the course of a decade and would just give that money to billionaires. Like, she's just like, oh, let's fix problems at home by ending one of the most successful programs for keeping like that keeps people living in poverty out of like urgent care. Like, what are you doing? What do you do? Obviously she's a liar. And so it's just kind of like, oh, okay, so we're supposed to believe the liar, that she's going to do what you think she's going to do because she agreed with you because you're playing 5D chess with her somehow, Cenk. It just doesn't make sense. We've reached the point where the ultra wealthy are anti-war because they want the money to go to them instead. Yes, unless it is a war to seize land for them. It's why Greenland is kind of sweating a little bit about a possible like military seizure.
For years and years and years, I'm longer than I can remember, that Iran is on the verge of having a nuclear weapon, but we continually ignore the ones that have nuclear weapons, like India, Pakistan. They're actually, starting a war with each other right now. What about North Korea? They have nuclear weapons. China, Russia, we have nuclear weapons. Many countries have nuclear weapons, but yet the problems that I see and the people that I know deal with problems like drug addiction and overdose, mental.
Okay, but like, also, we want nuclear weapons to stop proliferating so that, the risk of nuclear war goes down and not up. I'm just throwing that out there. Like, we want fewer nuclear weapons on the whole. Like, the difference between Iran and North Korea is that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon, and we kind of want to keep it that way so that there are fewer nuclear weapons.
Health is a great concern in America.
Yeah, also, every single time these populist conservatives talk about like fentanyl, drug addiction, overdose, mental health, etc. Hey, guys, you want to know how much of a shit they give about mental health care? When was the last time they signed a bill that would fund mental health care coverage? When was the last time? When was the last time they helped people with overdoses survive? Because I'm actually remembering that a lot of conservatives were vocally against the medication that can be provided to people suffering overdoses that helps them survive. They wanted to restrict that. Yeah, Narcan. They wanted to restrict that so more people died from using drugs, so that drugs would be, more stigmatized. Drug use would be more dangerous, and that would stop people from using the drug. But all it does, when you stop making Narcan easily available, all it does is get more people killed. It kills more addicts. And so they sit there and they pretend to care about drug addiction and overdoses and mental health, and they don't do anything about them. They will even do their best to make it worse. Hell, whenever someone introduces like an idea that might help drug addicts get off of their addictions, these people shoot it down and defund it. So like, again, liar. But yeah, I guess we should I guess we should believe that Marjorie Taylor Greene agreeing one time with Cenk on this show will lead to peace in our time. Narcan kits are still free in Canadian pharmacies. We should have a program like that here. There's no reason not to.
Today. And we've really got to do something to make everything affordable for every single person that lives in this country. And here's the bottom line. My job title is United States House of Representatives. I'm a representative for the United States for Georgia's 14th district. And that means that we've
Wait, your title is United States House of Representatives? Okay.
got to focus here at home instead of worrying about running off and going to another war, another foreign war that we don't belong in.
Yep. Okay, we're living very interesting times because a lot of people on the left say don't even have Marjorie Taylor Greene on, and if you do, you got to yell at her, et cetera. And so we asked our audience, Representative Greene, on our website tyt.com whether we should have you on, and it looks like, what is that? 82% say yes. And here you are. And once you come on, it turns out, oh wait, you agree with us on Iran, and by the way, you agree with us on Vietnam and Iraq. So if we can actually prevent a war together, that would be amazing. So, but now let's talk about, yes, but how deep is it right now? Like, I know for the Iraq war, they did a lot of propaganda, and Young Turk's been around forever.
Yeah, she's on TYT. Yeah, I guess maybe you might have missed that because she was full screen for a bit. This is an interview with Cenk Uygur. Cenk thinks that he can manipulate her into being a staunch anti-war ally.
We're the longest running show in internet history. And so we were on the air for the Iraq war. And at the time, Ben Mankiewicz and I were like, no, don't go. They didn't attack us, right? But they built up a lot of propaganda before they went in and did the attack. In this case, it looks like there's some significant drama, moving of the chairs around in the Pentagon, and the National Security Advisor group. So do you have a better sense of how close we are to war right now?
Well, there was a development today. I've been constantly saying for several weeks now.
Hello, I'm a truck. I demand you afford me due respect. I'll hold my breath if you don't.
I don't understand what that means. Thank you for the $5 super chat, though.
I've never seen a Houthi or a Houthi or however you pronounce it. I don't even know what they look like.
Maybe that's a problem when you are partly in charge of like helping to do foreign policy as like a representative in the US, government. Maybe you should have some awareness about that.
I haven't seen them back home in Rome, Georgia, where I live. I haven't seen them in Washington, D.C. And I keep saying that, how is this a threat to everyday Americans when they are not threatening us here at home in our homeland? And I think this narrative broke through, and I was excited to see President Trump say today from the White House during one of his press conferences that there has been communication with the Houthis, with Yemen, and they have decided that they have said they won't bomb ships anymore. And President Trump said, well, we will not bomb the Houthis. So I think that that's significant, and I was very happy to hear it. But I also think it was important to speak out. And I thought it was important to remind everyone here in Washington that always seems to forget the campaign promises that are made on the campaign trail, that the biggest part of this campaign, one of them, was no more foreign wars, no matter which country it is. We don't want to go to war for Ukraine. We don't want to go to war against Iran. I don't think we should be fighting wars on behalf of Israel. And many Americans agree with that. So I was pleased to see President Trump's announcement today that there had been communication, and they said no more bombs.
So look,
that there had been communication. By the way, Donald Trump clarified, I believe later that day, that he hadn't had like an actual conversation. He just kind of decided it mid interview. I think that was the interview with Mark Carney. Mark Carney was there, the Canadian PM, and he basically on the spot decided we were done bombing Yemen. He's like, well, they don't like being bombed. Insane.
First, credit where credit is due. When Netanyahu asked him to bomb Iran and Trump didn't, about a week or 2 weeks ago, I was very happy about that, and I gave Trump credit for that. And now you're, reporting more good news about, not bombing Yemen anymore. We'll see if that holds. But Representative Greene, we're having these conversations because the Trump administration is filled with neocons. If it wasn't filled with neocons, we wouldn't need this conversation. He said anti-war. You're very clear about that. You're super clear about that. I'm clear about it. But all of a sudden, we're having a conversation about how we might go to war. So how do you think the neocons got there, and how powerful do you think they are within the Trump administration?
Well, I would say they're powerful on both
I don't know that she knows what a neocon is, bud.
sides of the aisle, to be honest with you. We saw Democrats in the House and Senate vote overwhelmingly to fund the war in Ukraine. And we saw Republicans do the same thing in the House and the Senate. So I would say this is not a one-party problem. This is a two-party problem. And this is also the military-industrial complex that is very, very powerful, because they keep, no matter what administration it is, they somehow find a way to get their foreign wars. However, I really give President Trump a lot of credit for standing up against this. And the announcement he said today was, I think, extremely significant. But we still have a long ways to go. And no matter who is...
Yeah, I applaud him for standing up for it. Very significant.
President of the United States. It's the most powerful person in the world. That's who President Trump is right now. And everybody is texting him, calling him, and doing everything they can to get in the Oval Office or to somehow find time with him on the weekends. So I don't think they'll let up anytime soon. But I will say this, I think it's up to the American people to continue to voice their concerns and express what they want out of this government. And I think that's important no matter who's in charge. And so I hope we continue to have this conversation, and I hope we continue to just make sure what people want is said louder than the small minority here in Washington, D.C. that wants more foreign wars.
You know, I'm going to move on to Israel in a little bit and free speech and all that, but a couple more on Iran here because it's so monumentally important. So look, John Fetterman's saying that we should bomb Iran right now. He's a Democrat. I'm deeply disappointed in him. Kamala Harris wrapped her arms around Liz Cheney and Dick Cheney during the campaign. I thought it was a disastrous idea. I said it many times. The neocons are not our friends. And if you're a Democrat and you're embracing neocons, it makes no sense. No ideological sense. It's not principled. It just makes, so if you want to say Liz Cheney did the right thing for about January 6th hearings, et cetera, probably we could debate that, but I understand that part. But don't go in a neocon direction. Now, having said all that, I'm being honest about it. If Trump does attack Iran, how disappointed will you be in Trump?
I don't...
Again, I have to keep coming back to this, right? Like, he's essentially just saying, like, yeah. Look, guys, if I can trap her into saying that she will be really disappointed, okay, that's basically like making a contract with a demon. Okay, it can't break the contract. So if I can trick her into making an agreement with me, I'll get the fiddle made out of gold or something. I don't know. You guys understand what I mean. Devil went down to Georgia. You all get it.
See a need to attack Iran. I don't see a need or understand a reason to attack Iran, and the American people don't want a war with Iran. You know, for the past several years during the Biden administration, we saw our own...
I don't know who Iran is, but I don't want a war with him.
...borders overrun every single day. And I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and I can't tell you how many stories, there are too many stories to even comprehend, from families who lost their family member to fentanyl poisoning or perhaps some other type of illegal alien crime or murder, whether it was a car accident or an actual rape and murder. And these are the stories I think we should be paying attention to. And this is what matters to me. Our border matters to me, and the American people matter to me. And that'll be my continued focus, and that will be my continued voice, my public voice, as well as my private voice, and when I get to speak with the president.
Okay, and you do get to speak with the president and I don't, so that's important that you deliver that message, so we appreciate it. Or at least I appreciate it, I'll speak for myself. And so one last thing on Iran. Look, Iran was in basically a peace deal with us during the Obama years, and we got to take most of their uranium out of their country so they had no ability to develop nuclear weapons. I thought it was a great deal, and I criticize people on all sides, and I criticize Obama for a lot of things, but I thought that was actually one of his better accomplishments, keeping us out of the war and making sure Iran didn't get nukes. How about going back into that deal?
Well,
again, like, how about going back into that deal? How? Via what mechanism are you going to be able to go back into that deal? Like, what are you talking about? Because like, it's not really a deal you can go back into. Yeah, the glaze is ridiculous. The kid gloves is wild. Good night, Dragonfly.
Well, I think a deal would be important, and perhaps that's what the Trump administration and President Trump is working towards. He's made that commitment for that he doesn't want Iran to ever have a nuclear weapon, and so I'm sure there is a major effort there to make sure it doesn't happen. Here's the situation though: is I'll go back to this. Unless Iran is directly attacking America, attacking the American people, I'm more of like, let's focus at home. We have tremendous problems here at home, as well as looking at other countries that we don't want to get sucked into their foreign wars. And Ukraine is another one that I think that we need to make sure that we stay out of. These are all of these countries, when we're talking about these geopolitical conflicts, these are places that have had conflicts, some of them longer than I've been alive. And I turned 51 at the end of this month. So whether it's the Middle East or, some kind of conflict over in Eastern Europe or wherever it is, I really think for
some kind of conflict, over in Eastern Europe, whatever, like Ukraine, maybe.
Me, my main focus is let's fix America. Let's fix our problems, because our problems are quite significant.
Yeah. All right. So now a related issue, because I think the neocons got there because of campaign donations, and Israel has taken about $300 billion adjusted for inflation over their lifetime from America, or we've given it to them because they're a special ally, whatever that means. I don't know what it means. And so I actually said that the other day, and somebody on social media, right winger on social media, was like, "Hey, Grok, is that true?" And Grok was like, "Actually, it's a little higher. It's around $311 billion." So, do we have to keep giving money to Israel, or can we just say, "Hey, that's enough. You're a grown-up country. You're one of the top 20 economies in the world. You have universal health care. We don't. You have paid family leave. We don't." Is it time to stop giving money to Israel?
I would say it's time to stop giving money to pretty much every single country around the world. I'm very much against foreign donations to countries all over the world, especially when we're in $36 trillion in debt. It saddens me to see homeless veterans on our streets. It saddens me talking to senior citizens that can hardly afford to pay rent or pay for their medications and food. I really think that our money needs to stay at home and fix our own problems. But I'd also like to remind you, it's both sides of the aisle. With the Ukraine war, even AOC voted to fund the Ukraine war. It's Republicans and Democrats together, and the uniparty.
Yeah, like I'm just throwing this out there, but like maybe that's because it's a good thing to like protect a country that is being invaded by a crazy nuclear superpower. I'm just throwing that idea out there,
It's real. It is definitely a real thing here in Washington, and they're driven to continue funding foreign aid and funding foreign countries and funding foreign wars. And I think that is, I don't know how to break that cycle. I do the best I can by being very vocal about it, as I'm one member of Congress out of 435. But I will continue urging that direction to go in.
So it's certainly bipartisan, yes. Both parties are very happy to give more and more money to Israel. I'm sure the fact that AIPAC was the number one donor in this campaign cycle is just a coincidence, just randomly. It wouldn't affect it at all. I hear from mainstream media reporters that politicians don't care about money. But let's continue a little bit more, because Trump said this wild plan about how we were.
What was that noise? What was that noise?
Live from the Poly Market studio in LA.
Oh, weird. Okay. Huh. Just a audio glitch, I guess.
We're going to take over Gaza, and we're going to own Gaza, and we were going to take care of the unexploded bombs for Israel in Gaza. I assume you're against all that?
Yes, I'm not supporting that. I'm not interested in taking over some part of the Middle East. I'm unapologetically American, and I can't repeat that message loud enough and over again. We've got people in Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, and Northeast Georgia that their homes have still not been rebuilt from Hurricane Helene. Look at over in California, Malibu, where many people's homes were destroyed from the wildfires, and we could name different parts of the country, Lahaina, Hawaii, and on and on. And before we go in and try to clean up anybody else's mess, or pay for reconstruction in any country, whether it's Gaza or Ukraine.
Yeah, if only there was some kind of like, I don't know, disaster relief funding that might be offered. I'm just spitballing here, but like it kind of seems like maybe we have mechanisms for doing that and the money for doing that. It's just kind of weird that like we're not. Kind of weird that it's just not being offered. I wonder why.
And I don't think we should be doing that either. I think we should rebuild here in America and help Americans first.
All right, let's go to America and as these issues affect us here at home. So now people are getting snatched up off the streets. Mahmoud Halil, Öztürk, who wrote an op-ed against Israel or criticizing the current Israeli government, and now they're arrested and potentially deported. And they were here legally on visas or as on green cards. Seems to be a direct attack on freedom of speech. What's your stance on those arrests?
Well, I think freedom of speech extends to Americans. I haven't really been vocal on any of those issues. That's been more some of my other Republican colleagues that have been addressing those issues. I think being an American citizen is a pretty special privilege. But if you're here on a visa or a green card, then I think you should be respectful towards America and the people that we stand with. And so if they've done something wrong, then I have no problem with them being deported.
Right. If it turns out that the reporting is accurate, and Öztürk as an example, the Turkish student up in Tufts, she just wrote an op-ed. Didn't do anything else, didn't say anything against America, just criticizing Israel and calling for an economic boycott. The Supreme Court has said that.
Remind me something. Who has kept the FEMA funding from California and North Carolina again? I think it was Donald Trump. I think they I think they gut FEMA. They gutted FEMA, fired a bunch of workers. And now I think there was a natural disaster down in Mississippi, and Mississippi has been waiting on disaster relief funding for like a month and a half now. It's crazy. It's just so weird.
That freedom of speech and our Constitution applies to everybody in the country, including resident aliens, that's legal aliens who have a green card, and people on visas. So it could corrode our freedom of speech if they're not allowed to criticize Israel. Does it bother you that it's just this one country that you're not allowed to criticize here in America, no matter what your status is?
Well, I definitely stand for people's free speech. That is something that I'm on record doing, even speak.
But not free speech for those people who are here on visas, as you just said. You only stand for that for Americans. Interesting.
That I disagree with. Let me tell you, probably a lot of people watching this show have said horrible speech against me, probably in my comments and all over social media, and probably on the show, you guys have probably said ugly speech against me. So but I still stand as a United States representative defending free speech, and I think I defend free speech probably more than most members of Congress, including many Democrats that you say a lot of nice things about. Yeah, and I want to make sure that for the record, everyone knows that I single-handedly came out so hard against a boycott bill that was going to be brought to the floor on Monday because I thought it was a violation of free speech that I took it down, and it wasn't voted on this week. And because I believe Americans have the right to buy or boycott any product or country that they want. So I have a very strong record, as well as I've defended Julian Assange, Eric Snowden, and many others. So I believe our First Amendment and our free speech is incredibly important. I'm not familiar with this young lady's op-ed. I haven't read it, and I'm not familiar with the details of the story. So because I don't know all those details, it's hard for me to give you an exact opinion on this.
Yeah, I understand. Let's talk about that boycott bill for a second.
I love, by the way, that she's like, yeah, I'm the strongest defender of free speech in Congress. But I can't. I just can't say if this one person deserves free speech in this case. But I'm the strongest free speech warrior in Congress. All right.
Second, because there was a Republican right-wing revolt against it. So this is something that actually passes in America all the time. It's in a lot of states people don't know about it. But like, for example, Florida has a bill that if you boycott or you call for the boycott of Israel, they'll take your government contracts away. And you could be an American citizen, it doesn't matter. So I think it's absolutely outrageous, but normally it just passes with flying colors. Who led a revolt in this case that blocked that bill in the Congress?
That was me. I came out first with my opposition to the bill, and I announced that I would be voting no to this boycott bill because, again, I believe Americans should be able to buy or boycott whatever product or country that they want to. Look what we did to Budweiser. We took Budweiser down, and that happened during the campaign, and that happened from MAGA, that happened from people on the right. So I believe in Americans' ability to be able to do things like that. But I don't lean into this. I think there's this movement that a lot of people are either they're for Israel or they're against Israel. I don't lean into any of that. I think Israel is a country that's doing just fine on their own. They have a great economy. They certainly don't have the amount of debt that we have. They have their own nuclear weapons, and they've already demonstrated they have a very capable military. We have voted a lot of votes, a lot of resolutions against anti-Semitism in Congress. But for me and my public statements on this issue is that I would like to see in the House of Representatives, we need to be doing more votes and focusing on the agenda that we campaigned for and the American people voted for in November of 2024. And I would like to see us putting our country before other countries. And that's not a for or against or any of that stuff. I just think we need to focus on what the campaign was about.
Yeah. So look, you've taken a good deal of criticism on that issue of anti-Semitism, et cetera. So, and I get where it comes from. You know where it comes from. Having said that, I'll tell you my opinion in the last few years. For me, Israel's a foreign government. And so governments do things that are wrong all the time. I'm originally from Turkey. I'm a naturalized citizen here. And so do I like Turkey? Of course I do, right? But if Turkey's doing something wrong, I'm gonna call it out, right? And if we say, hey, you're not allowed to criticize Turkey, otherwise you'll, or boycott Turkey, otherwise we'll take away your government contracts, we'll arrest you, we'll deport you. I'd say that's outrageous, that's crazy. So, and that doesn't mean that you hate me as a Turkish American. That's also crazy. Just means the government is doing something wrong. So I think, I love our Jewish American brothers and sisters, and I think they're some of the best fighters for peace. And so to me, the issue of religion and the issue of a foreign government are completely separate. Do you agree with that?
Oh, of course. And you know what? Listen, I'm a Christian. My savior is a Jew, and that's Jesus. And so, look, I have no problem with Israel. I think they are doing great. They're a great country, as well as many other countries are. And criticism about anything is something. I have a pretty good reputation of criticizing things that I think are wrong. And you referenced where I've been accused of anti-Semitism, but that was a headline, and it was not the actual story. So you may have your facts wrong there on that. I'm not anti-Semitic. Not a single bone in my body is anti-Semitic. As a matter of fact, I think that.
Methinks she doth protest too much.
One of the problems is in this country is constantly accusing people of all kinds of hate, whether it's anti-Semitism, racism, being homophobic, all of these things. I think that what we need to focus on is that we're all people and making sure that we remember that humanity is something that's extremely important. And that's why we're having this chat tonight, is because we're both against all of these wars. And we need to make sure that we can take a stance in America that we don't want to be involved. We don't have to be involved. We don't have to be involved in every single conflict. And we don't need to go out and fight wars on behalf of foreign countries. As a matter of fact, we need to fix our problems at home.
Okay, well, I was going to go to the next topic, but you brought up that it was a false headline. So you're right, we have said some bad things about you. There's no question about that. And
I just like, how gullible do you have to be to fall for this shit? Like, yeah. We're all on the same page here, right? Like, we're definitely against the wars. We're against the wars. Like, I don't believe for a second that this lady would actually vote against going to war. Like, if Donald Trump tomorrow wanted to go to war, I don't know, with Iran, with Greenland, she'd be down for it. She would vote for it. I don't believe her.
So, and it started with that issue of the space lasers, right? So you brought it back.
Yeah, but I never said Jewish space lasers. So that's a lie. Yeah, it's a lie, and I really am tired of people perpetuating.
So what do you
lie.
mean you didn't say it? Just I'm trying to clear it up.
I never said that. I've never said that statement in my life. But there was.
I never said the words Jewish space laser together. Okay. I have never said that. That is a bold-faced lie. That's really interesting. We'll come back to that in a sec.
Someone that wrote an article, and that was the headline, and that's what they created. It was in early January of 2021 when I first came into Congress. And so it was an entire hit piece against me. And it was a statement I had never said in my life and never even heard of it until I saw it trending on Twitter attached to my name.
So that was not your Facebook account?
Of course it was my Facebook account, but I never said Jewish space lasers. And I never blamed Jewish people or Israel for anything in my Facebook post. And you could read my Facebook post and it's clear and obvious.
Okay. Are you worried about Elon's space lasers? these days? Because they're like, I heard about this Golden Dome project. I know there's a little bit, it's just an adjacent topic, but let me ask you while we're here. So it would cost hundreds of billions of dollars. And theoretically,
I'm just playing. I'm letting this play because I want it to be crystal clear that he provided no pushback whatsoever. No pushback whatsoever on her claim.
it would be like Iron Dome that we gave to Israel where it protects the country, but it sounds like a giant boondoggle to me. I don't think that they're gonna be able to pull that off. And isn't it a problem that Elon's one of the top donors to Donald Trump, and now if he gets this massive contract for Golden Dome, wouldn't that be a conflict of interest you'd be worried about?
Well, I think having national defense is critically important, and that's something that the American people would definitely want. I don't know the details of this project, but I think it's kind of silly to just make these accusations against Elon and the Trump administration when we could go through every single administration going back for decades and line up the wealthy people in the country that benefited from whoever was president at the time. I mean, we could talk about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, who banned me, Twitter that banned my.
Yeah. You got banned. You got banned off of some social media apps. All right. So let's just roll back here for a second about her claims. Right now, the piece she's referring to here comes from the New York Intelligencer, from New York Magazine. This piece by Jonathan Chait titled "Marjorie Taylor Greene Blamed Wildfires on Secret Jewish Space Laser." Right? And, Greene's views are just a bit more controversial. They include, but are by no means limited to, the following: the QAnon conspiracy theory, which holds that Donald Trump is secretly fighting a worldwide child sex slavery ring that was supposed to culminate in the mass arrest of his political opposition, and she believes it's worth listening to. Muslims don't belong in government. 9/11 was an inside job. Shootings at Parkland, Sandy Hook, and Las Vegas were staged. Zionist supremacists are secretly masterminding Muslim immigration to Europe in a scheme to outbreed white people, and leading Democratic officials should be executed. Just a number of beliefs she held here. But then it goes down and it links to a screenshot of her Facebook, which was initially unearthed by Media Matters over here, which found this post here. And basically, it reads, "As there are now over 70 people confirmed dead and over 1,000 missing, the fires in California are a horrific tragedy. I'm praying for all involved. I'm posting this in speculation because there are too many coincidences to ignore. And just putting it out there from some research I've done stemming from my curiosity over PG&E stocks, which tanked all week, then rallied Thursday night after California official announced they would not let PG&E fail. I find it very interesting that Roger Kimmel on the board of directors of PG&E is also a vice chairman of Rothschild Inc., international investment banking firm. I also find it interesting the long history of financial contributions that PG&E has made to Jerry Brown over the years and spent millions in lobbying. What a coincidence it must be that Gov. Brown signed a bill in September of 2018 protecting PG&E and allowing PG&E to pass off its cost of fire responsibility to its customers in rate hikes and through bonds. It also must just be a coincidence that the fires are burning in the same projected areas that the $77 billion high-speed rail project is being built, which also happens to be Governor Brown's pet project. And what are the odds that Feinstein's husband, Richard Blum, is the contractor to the rail project? Geez, with that much money, we could build 3 U.S. southern border walls. Then oddly, there are all these people who said they saw what looked like lasers or blue beams of light causing the fires, and pictures and videos. I don't know anything about that, but I do find it really curious that PG&E's partnership with Solarin on space solar generators starting in 2009. They announced the launch into space in March of 2018, and maybe even put them up before that. Space solar generators collect the sun's energy and then beam it back to Earth to a transmitter to convert the electricity. The idea is clean energy to replace coal and oil. if they are beaming the sun's energy back to Earth, I'm sure they wouldn't ever miss a transmitter receiving station, right? I mean, mistakes are never made when anything new is invented. What would that look like anyway? A laser beam or light beam coming down to Earth, I guess. Could that cause a fire? I don't know. I hope not. That wouldn't look so good for PG&E, Rothschild Inc., Solarin, or Jerry Brown, who sure does seem fond of PG&E. Good thing for Solarin that Michael Peavy is on their board, since he is former president of California Public Utilities Commission, California's most powerful energy regulatory agency. Great connections right there. Also, I will say, whoever was able to buy that PG&E stock at the bottom before the announcement was made when stocks rallied sure did well on their investment. I wonder, how did you get privy to that kind of info? You must have to know somebody, right? Seems like a lot of connected people in this crowd. And with these space solar generators, I really hope they have very good aim beaming the sun's power down to Earth. But what do I know? I just like to read a lot. So for those of you who don't know, the Rothschilds are like one of the most common anti-Semitic dog whistles in like neo-Nazi spaces. Yeah, basically she's trying to claim that, you know, the Rothschild company had something to do with organizing space lasers to start California wildfires. Okay? And like, it's true, she never said the word Jewish space laser, but also people aren't stupid and can read between the lines when you invoke that many dog whistles. Okay? And this has been a theory in QAnon circles for years now. It's still a theory that they, a conspiracy theory that they try to popularize in the QAnon zone. But basically, there's a bunch of QAnon conspiracy theories that, like, oh, the lasers from space are starting all the forest fires. That's why we have so many more forest fires now. It's not because of climate change. It's because of the space lasers. So, yeah. This is just literally a QAnon conspiracy post. And she just, like, to Cenk's face here, goes, no, I never said that. And he has no pushback whatsoever. And basically, in 2018, a lot of QAnon conspiracists were saying that this particular fire was caused by a space laser in order to fast track California high-speed rail. And that, you know, a vice chairman at Rothschild was sparking fires. So it's not really speculation. She just kind of did that. In like the 1800s, the Rothschilds were like the go-to, like, you know, Jewish boogeyman of like anti-Semites. Today it's George Soros, but you know, some people stick to the classics.
My personal page until Elon bought X back. We could go through the list on and on. Pharmaceutical companies that benefited during COVID and many more things. So I'm not really going to get into the silly back and forth about, oh, you know, Elon is bad. Actually, I think Elon is a great patriot, and what he's doing at Doge is critically important because we're $36 trillion in debt. That's the right and the left. We're in that debt together. And so I'm thankful he's taking that on.
Right, so on another show, we might talk about the tax cuts and how that's going to put us in much greater debt, but it is a different topic. So,
but that is a different topic, and I would never want to ask you an inconvenient question because I want to make sure that you relay my message to your master.
You know, and by the way, do both sides take tremendous amount of money and do what their owners want? Absolutely. And so do I talk about it in relationship to the Republican Party? Absolutely. Do I talk about it in relationship to the Democratic Party? Absolutely. Right. And again, AIPAC was the #1 donor, but you're right. Big Pharma normally gives more money than AIPAC, oftentimes 4 times as much, oil companies, bankers, et cetera. So I'm curious, do you take corporate PAC money or no?
No, I don't take a lot of corporate PAC money. I don't have donations.
No, I don't take do you take corporate PAC money? No, I don't take a lot. Seems like you did not understand the question.
From Big Pharma. I think I didn't go on the Israel trip with AIPAC, and I've had I think around $2,000 from them, but that's it. I don't have big tech money. Most of my donations, over 90% of them, are from the grassroots or small dollar donations. I have one of the largest digital files in Congress, and I have donors from all 50 states. I think I'm one of the rare members of Congress that actually have donors from all 50 states, as well as over 11 million people that follow me across social media platforms.
So not a lot of corporate PAC money, but some don't take any at all as a matter of principle, like Ro Khanna on the left, Josh Hawley on the right, Matt Gaetz when he was in office stopped taking corporate PAC money. Do you have a rule against it, or you're just not taking a lot?
I think there's been a couple of donations, but I'd have to literally go through my FEC to be able to tell you what they are.
Yeah, Marjorie Taylor Greene is the biggest donor recipient. Is like one of the biggest fundraisers. I do think a lot of like for Republicans, a lot of her money does come from small dollar donors who just like her antics, you know? That being said, like she does get corporate donos.
But there's probably very, very few, if there are any at all.
Okay, you mentioned Snowden earlier. Should Trump pardon Snowden and bring him back home?
I think that's something that the president should seriously look at. And I'm for a pardon. I've said that. I've been on record for that, as well as Julian Assange. I think he deserves a full pardon. And I personally would like to.
That's maybe one of the best chat messages I've seen in a while. Rhyme Jack over in Twitch on Twitch writes, "Open Secrets gives me retired as the biggest industry that supports Marjorie Taylor Greene." Oh boy.
To see that.
So would I. That's another point of agreement that we have.
Jack, do you take money from CEOs? Maybe. I don't know what any of you guys do. Maybe some of you are CEOs. Maybe Sake Tanuki? I don't know.
So for all that we fight and yell at each other, and justifiably so on a lot of issues, it's good to see that we at least have some common ground on some really important issues. Okay.
I guess my partner subscribes to me and she's in charge of her startup company, so I guess I have that one. I'm being supported by Big Trans Lingerie. You know, that the gigantic globe spanning empire of transgender affirming lingerie.
So one more thing here along these lines, Epstein files. How disappointed are you that they have not come out yet? And do you have a theory as to why they haven't?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked me about that. You know what I've been saying for quite.
What common ground has been established? Well, they both broadly agree with no real specifics that we shouldn't go to war. But again, I just don't believe her when she says she's anti-war. I don't believe that's a principled position she has.
A few years now, as I guarantee you, most of that information has already been destroyed. I can't imagine that it still exists. And I would like to, of course, we want to see all the information, but I just think it's been destroyed. That's my own personal opinion. But I think there's other foreign countries that probably have information on that as well. And it would be nice if they would release the information that they have.
Oh, that's interesting. Which foreign countries do you think might have information about that?
I would guess some of our greatest allies, Israel, probably has information there. I would not be surprised at all. If
I do kind of love how flustered she gets at just like any amount of a follow-up question about like, yeah, okay, who might have the info that Donald Trump said that we had.
If they did, the UK, I bet would have information. I'm not sure who else, but I would suspect those countries.
Are you disappointed that the Trump administration has not put it out yet?
I'm disappointed that many administrations haven't put it out. The Biden administration should have put it out. I think a lot of people should have put
the administration that's in power right now is Donald Trump.
It out. But again, I'll go back to this. I have a hard time believing that it all still is there.
Yeah. Any theories?
It'd be really convenient if it was just all gone.
And what happened?
For her.
I have no idea. I couldn't even tell you. Do I think he committed?
I have no idea. I couldn't tell you. Please stop talking about this. What about his suicide, huh?
Suicide? Nope, I don't think so. But again, that's just my opinion.
Okay. All right. Last thing before we end on a fun question: If Trump does make the mistake of bombing Iran, what do you think is going to happen with America First contingent in Congress, in media, et cetera? How do you push back? And can you influence the president enough to make sure he doesn't bomb Iran.
Oh no, Rhyme Jack, I know you weren't trying to be funny. That's just a very funny fact. It's a very funny fact that the biggest group of people donating to Marjorie Taylor Greene are retired. I think that's funny.
If he does, to somehow extricate us from there, because I'm worried that if he does it once and then Iran retaliates, well, we're off to the races.
Well, President Trump is on record for decades being against foreign wars. He said that over and over again, and he actually campaigned on ending foreign wars.
He literally assassinated Soleimani. What are you talking about? He perpetrated numerous acts of war during his last administration. What do you mean?
And going back to the Abraham Accords, and that is a record that he proudly held during his first administration, and I think he wants to hold that record again in this administration. So I really don't see a scenario where President Trump would bomb Iran at this time unless Iran were to attack America or American interests throughout the world.
All right, well, let's hope so. And let's hope that the fact that the left, the right, the middle, everyone agrees that we should not get involved in a war in the Middle East.
You know, notice that colossal caveat she carved out? Did anyone pick that up? Did anyone pick that up?
First administration, and I think he wants to hold that record again in this administration. So I really don't see a scenario where President Trump would bomb Iran at this time unless Iran were to attack America or American interests throughout the world.
Or American interests throughout the world. That's pretty broad. Just saying, like, American interests can involve basically anything. What does she mean by that? She means like business interests. You know, like how we went to war in Iraq for like the oil fields. So like Halliburton could control the oil fields, you know? That was an American interest, right? And so like, that's just a gigantic carve out that effectively means that her statement like, oh, I'm against going into new wars unless Donald Trump thinks it's a good idea. You know, like maybe he wants to build a Trump Tower in Singapore or something. I don't know. Yeah, vague American interest. Dude has already publicly expressed the desire to like build a Trump Tower in like a zone where a genocide is taking place. It's not hard to imagine that he'd be interested in just starting a conflict in order to like snag up some real estate property. He hasn't even divested from his companies, you know? But Cenk's gonna walk away from this thinking it's a win.
All right, well, let's hope so. And let's hope that the fact that the left, the right, the middle, everyone agrees that we should not get involved in a war in the Middle East influences the president. Okay, on a different electoral topic.
This is my message to you, Donald Trump. See, Marjorie Taylor Greene agrees. No new wars. You will be activated when you hear this phrase. McDonald's Big Mac.
Topic. Last serious question is Senate run in Georgia. Are you considering it?
You know, I'm really lucky to have options for several.
This is an actual very funny question. Like I viewed this as like the only genuine question in this entire interview.
Different races, and I'm lucky to have those options because of the incredible support that I have from many people in Georgia. You know, polling shows that I can easily win for the Senate primary. Polling also shows I can easily win for the governor's primary.
Yeah, that's it's really interesting that you're mentioning only the primaries, huh? Did you look at the polling for the general? Because I'm really hoping you run for Senate. I'm really hoping you run for Senate because you were losing that general matchup by about 20 points.
But I got to tell you something else. I absolutely love my district. So the good thing for me is it's my choice to make, and I just have to give it some good thought.
Okay, that seems like a wide open door. That's my interpretation of that answer. Okay, and finally, you once did. Speaking of people, you know, us fighting back and forth, which we've done a lot. You once
I don't think I've ever fought with you. Have I ever fought back and forth with you? I don't think so.
No.
You're just so adorable. The way you don't push back at me at all. That's so cute.
Overall with the network, right? Because you did do a mean tweet about Damage Report. That's John Iadaro's show, okay?
I think they were trashing me earlier today, so.
So you're still watching?
Oh yeah, I watch you guys. I watch all kinds of news. I'm not a Fox News.
In his head, Cenk Uygur is just going like, Yes, we're getting the conservative audience. This is good news for us. The conservatives are watching. We're winning them over, unaware that he's moving towards their positions instead.
Viewer. I hardly watch Fox. I actually enjoy watching a lot of different news. I enjoy different perspectives and people's opinions.
All right, so you got a message for John Idarola?
Tell him to be nice to me. He's never even met me.
Okay, that's a tough ask, but we'll see. We'll see what we can do. All right. Well, for folks who have disagreed a lot in the past, I'm glad that we agree on a super important issue. We've got to stop the war. And we've got to get, by the way, I'll also say this. We've got to get past our selfishness. Oh, I'm gonna be pure. I'm not gonna talk to Cenk. I'm not gonna talk to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I'm gonna stay pure. No, we've got to find alliances, especially when people's lives are on the line, trillions of dollars are on the line. And so thank you for.
Yeah, kind of like a red-brown alliance, kind of aligning with populist fash people, but we kind of introduced some kind of like liberal lefty ideas in there, kind of a red-brown alliance. Historically, it's worked out pretty well. If you don't read any of the history whatsoever, it works out pretty okay right up until a certain point.
For reaching out on that, and I appreciate it, and for actually being true to that principle that you have, which is that you said you were anti-war, and here you are trying to prevent a war. So,
is she though? Is she though? Like, I'm sorry. I don't think she's doing anything, though. Like, she came on your show and agreed with you with a colossal asterisk after her agreement. Like, the idea here that, like, she's doing something by agreeing with you is, like, insanely narcissistic behavior. I don't think Cenk is being charitable to her. I think Cenk is thinking he's like masterminding something. I think he thinks that he's just being so slick that he thinks that he has her eating out of his hand. That's what's happening here. And he thinks like, I'm having her eating out of my hand. She's going to go to the president and influence him, and we're going to avoid a war. And that's what this is all about. He thinks he's slick, and he's getting used by some of the dumbest people on the planet.
So credit on that issue for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I do agree. The right and the left need to talk more often.
All right, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Almost universally, when conservatives say that, they're saying it so that they can try to normalize their most unhinged views and normalize themselves to a leftist audience. It's fucking nuts. It's such a frustrating conversation because, like, so much of it is vapid, like polishing of shoes. Like just licking her boots. It's gross. It's demeaning. Just real quick, out of curiosity, I want to look at the interviews. What a terrible interview. Cenk, please go away. You're doing more damage. What the fuck? Fuck you, man. He flirts with the Nazi and we're supposed to think this is good. Cenk and Anna ran TYT into the ground. At least the comments are pretty vocal. The young Trumpists. I unsubbed from TYT a while back. Okay, full grifter then unsub. Cenk, there was a point in my life where I respected you. The respect is somewhere deep in a cold, damp grave. You're either a grifter or without a single brain cell to understand these people cannot be convinced. They don't believe in anything. Any effort spent giving them a soft pat on the back is an effort for them to rip away freedoms from everybody. Get your shit together. You used to be aggressive to the bad actors. Now you're only aggressive to people who once called you a friend. And that is so fucking true. That is so fucking true. Why talk to MTG but not Sam Cedar?
Oh no, Sam Cedar. Wow, what a fucking nightmare.
Oh, okay. We found one positive comment. What a great conversation. Probably many are surprised to hear her talk like this. No. Literally no one is. She is great. Cenk deserves credit for having her on. So, yeah. TYT is a fucking joke. It just is at this point. There's not really any getting around it. And like, I think they know they're full of shit. I think it's why Cenk is unwilling to talk with like Sam Cedar. I think like they know what they're doing. This is intentional. And I think Cenk has weighed the pros and cons. And I think that he just thinks he's slick. I think it just boils down to he thinks he's smarter than everyone else in the room. Yeah, John Idarola, Jordan Uhl, Uhl? I guess I've never said it out loud. Uhl, I think. They're cool. I like them. All right. I think they're doing what they can, but I think their time to like, that the window to leave is, it's now, I think. They got to jump. Yeah, the issue is it's scary to jump and just do your own channel because, again, like the studios they work from are probably not their own. It's not their property. They have to have like a space where they can do their work. They have to have like, they probably don't control like the IP rights for their shows. So they'd have to like rebrand and do like a new YouTube setup and channel. Like it would be hard. It would be hard unless that they can find some place that would like, take them, etc. I wonder if it was designed like that on purpose. I mean, it's not usually designed like that on purpose, though. Eventually, when you become more corporate and there are lawyers involved, like a lawyer is going to say, yeah, you should probably have the rights to the show your company is doing, And with that, I think we're going to be done.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the scenes. Politics, being flame more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat.